Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm bringing you the next part of lytutieu's story, and this episode is truly breath-stopping. In the previous episode, when lytutieu took little Tony to the city for his speech delay therapy class, the house in the village was left with only Grandma watching over it. Everyone thought it would just be a few days, everything would be as peaceful as always. But no one expected that very night, everything would turn into a real nightmare. Two addicts wandering around the village noticed the empty house and took advantage of the moment Grandma was alone to break in. They rushed in, overpowered her, tied up her hands and feet, and even taped her mouth shut so she couldn't call for help. Then they ransacked the entire house, stealing everything of value, leaving her lying helpless and freezing on the dirt floor. The next morning, lytutieu called home, but no one picked up. Sensing something was terribly wrong, she immediately contacted Hung. As soon as he heard it, Hung didn't even take a breath. He jumped on his motorbike and sped from his unit straight home, over 130 kilometers of mountain roads, riding as if he had only one thought in his head. I have to get to my mother. I have to make it in time. And when he pushed open the door of that dark, silent house, the scene before him made his heart nearly stop. Grandma was unconscious. Her hands and feet were tied. Her breathing was so weak it was barely there. The whole family fell into panic. Without a second thought, Hung carried his mother on his back and rushed straight to the hospital, her condition already critical. Now the question is, will Grandma survive after that horrifying night? Will the police find any clues and catch the two criminals? Watch the full video to find out everything that happens next. The doors of the emergency room slowly opened, and the white light from inside spilled across the hallway. The doctor stepped out first. His face was less tense than before, though he still carried the seriousness of someone who had just finished a critical case. He gently removed his mask, looked directly at the family, and spoke in a deep, steady voice. Your family is fortunate, she was brought in just in time. She suffered exhaustion, low blood pressure, and severe shock. She's no longer in danger. The moment those words landed, it was as if all strength left Hung's body. His shoulders dropped, his knees nearly gave out. He had to grab the back of a nearby chair just to steady himself. His eyes, already red from stress, grew even redder, but this time from relief. The breath he'd been holding finally escaped in a long exhale, heavy with fatigue yet full of gratitude. The entire hallway went silent. The crushing weight that had been hanging over them seemed to lift, at least halfway. A moment later, the sound of a hospital bed's wheels echoed through the hall. A nurse pushed Grandma out of the emergency room, transferring her to a monitoring room. She lay on the bed, her face pale, lips dry, hands still trembling slightly, an oxygen tube positioned under her nose. But her breathing was steadier now, no longer as labored as when Hung first found her in that dark house. Hung walked right beside her, eyes never leaving her for even a second. When the bed was moved into the room, Grandma began to open her eyes. Her eyelids flickered, lifting slowly like someone returning from a nightmare. Her gaze was blurry at first. But the moment she made out the figure standing next to her, she trembled and whispered, "Hung, is that you?" Her voice was weak, raspy, yet enough to make Hung's heart tighten. He immediately leaned down and took her cold, frail hand into his. His own hand was warm, strong, as if trying to pour every bit of strength he had into her. "Don't worry, Mom," he said, his voice warm but choked with emotion. "No one can hurt you anymore." Grandma blinked, her lips quivering, while Hung tried his best to stay composed, standing there like a shield between his mother and everything that had terrified her. No one said another word. But just looking at the two of them holding hands, was enough to understand how terrifying the night had been for both of them. Two commune officers pushed the door open and stepped into the hospital room, their voices dropping to a gentle tone as if afraid of startling Grandma. The soft sound of their rubber sandals against the tile made the whole space feel even quieter. They walked toward the end of the bed, keeping a respectful distance so she wouldn't feel pressured. One of them leaned forward slightly, his tone firm but gentle. "Mrs. Ha, do you recognize anyone? When the incident happened, did you hear any voices that sounded familiar?" As soon as the question ended, Grandma Ha closed her eyes. She tried to pull together the chaotic fragments of that terrifying night. Everything had happened too fast, too dark, too overwhelming. Her hand tightened around the edge of the blanket, as if still fighting off the cold that lingered on her skin. Her voice trembled as she whispered. They were the addicts from the village, the ones wandering around these days, red eyes, breath smelling of drugs." Every word she managed to say, the officer beside her wrote down carefully. The sound of the pen scratching against paper echoed clearly in the quiet room. He wrote quickly but meticulously, making sure not to miss a single detail. The other officer lifted his head, looking straight at her to confirm. "Are you certain that you saw them near your house in the days before the incident?" Grandma Ha shuddered but forced herself to nod slowly. Her eyes were confused, still shadowed by fear. I saw them a few times, walking back and forth right in front of the gate." Hearing that, the two officers exchanged a brief look, as if a few key pieces had just fallen into place. The one holding the notebook closed the file and said clearly, "Understood. We'll go to the scene this afternoon. Please don't worry." He then turned to Hum, emphasizing each word. "The commune will work with the police on this. Your family is not alone." Hum gave a small nod. He didn't say much, but his eyes remained fixed on his mother, full of worry yet relieved that they finally had a concrete lead. The atmosphere in the hospital room was still heavy, but no longer suffocating. At the very least, what Grandma Ha remembered had opened the first path in the investigation, like a faint ray of light cutting through the darkness of the situation. In the afternoon, the commune police and district police arrived at HAICA's house. Several vehicles stopped at the gate, and officers stepped out carrying investigation kits, cameras, and sample collection boxes. The surrounding area was lightly cordoned off to prevent villagers from walking through and disturbing the scene. When they pushed the door open, the sight inside made everyone frown. The wooden door had been forced open, its edges chipped with clear marks from a metal tool. A wardrobe inside the room had one door ripped off, its hinge bent outward. Clothes, documents, bowls, chopsticks, everything was scattered across the floor, the unmistakable signs of a rushed, frantic search. One investigator crouched down, shining a specialized flashlight across the floor. On the wooden table, several dusty fingerprints stood out clearly, each ridge visible. Inside the left drawer, there were sweeping marks, as if someone had wiped through it with their hand to search for items. And on the broken lock, the dust hadn't fully settled yet, leaving sharp, distinct fingerprints behind. The investigator stood up and nodded to the team. "These prints are very clear. Highly likely the perpetrator knows how to break locks, or was high and got sloppy." Another officer immediately began taking photos, marking each fingerprint's position, and using forensic tape to lift the samples. Others carefully examined different parts of the house to see if any additional traces had been missed. All evidence was placed into sealed bags, labeled, coded, and signed on the spot. The lead investigator turned to the team. "Collect everything. We'll cross-check with the fingerprint database and the list of drug users in the village." Everyone nodded and moved efficiently. No one wasted a word, every detail mattered, because a single fingerprint could be the key to finding the culprits. The atmosphere inside the small house felt solemn, cold, and heavy, like a real investigation room. But this was the first crucial step toward uncovering the ones responsible for the horrifying night that Grandma endured. That night, when the hospital lights had turned a soft yellow, Hung stood in the hallway waiting for the commune and district officers to report back. Cold air seeped through the door gaps, and the long corridor echoed only with the occasional footsteps of passing nurses. The phone in his hand vibrated. A call from the police. The officer's voice on the other end was clear, concise, and firm. "We've identified them, Mr. Hung. The fingerprints matched 2 addicts already on the commune's monitoring list. Our team is sweeping the area to find where they're hiding." Hearing that, Hung's heart pounded hard in his chest, but he said nothing more than a quiet, "Yes." His face, tense the entire day, finally froze, as if he were holding every emotion tightly inside. Just an hour later, the phone vibrated again. This time, the voice was even more decisive. "We've arrested both suspects. Most of the stolen items have been recovered. We'll proceed according to the law." Hung stood motionless in the middle of the hospital hallway. The cold neon light reflected off his exhausted face, worn from a day full of chaos and fear. He clenched his fist, not out of anger, but because the heavy weight that had been crushing his chest finally lifted. Justice, at last, was on the right side. The men responsible for his mother's terrifying night had been caught. He lifted his eyes toward the room where his mother lay. He didn't say anything out loud, but his heart spoke only one thing. Mom is safe now. The next day, Hoica returned from the city with Tony. The moment she stepped off the bus, she almost ran straight toward the hospital. Her breath was shaky, her steps unsteady, exhausted, terrified, and unable to calm the panic hammering in her chest. Tony, sensing her tension, clung to her shoulder silently. When she pushed open the hospital room door, the first thing she saw was Grandma lying on the bed, the white blanket pulled up to her chest, a thin oxygen tube resting beneath her nose. Her face was pale, drained, the fear from that horrifying night still etched clearly into her expression. Just seeing her like that made Hoica freeze. Her eyes filled instantly. She couldn't hold it back. She broke into tears, the kind that come from days of guilt and dread. She rushed to the bedside, set Tony on the chair, and grabbed Grandma's hand tightly. "Mom, oh God. Mom, it's my fault. If I had been home, you wouldn't have." Her voice cracked apart. She couldn't even finish the sentence before Grandma lifted her frail hand and placed it gently over Hoica's. Even weak, she still tried, still managed to muster the strength of a mother who refuses to let her child blame herself. Her voice was hoarse, trembling, but firm. "It's not your fault. Life is like that, child. When things happen, it's fate. I'm alive, and that's enough." Those words cut straight into Hoica's heart. She collapsed forward, her shoulders shaking violently, pressing her forehead against her mother's hand like a little girl again, torn open by guilt and love. Tony stood nearby, confused at first. But seeing his mom cry, seeing his grandma lying with an oxygen tube, he stepped forward. He opened his tiny arms and wrapped them around his grandma's neck. His little head burrowed into her shoulder, smelling faintly of milk, a silent comfort only a child could give. Grandma looked at him, her lips trembling. She let out a small laugh, but the smile barely had time to settle before tears washed it away. A clear tear slid down her cheek, glistening under the hospital lights. She lifted her hand and gently rubbed Tony's back, as if holding life itself, fear, and love all at once. Hoica looked up and saw that moment, and she cried again. But this time, it was because her mother was still here. Still breathing. Still alive. A small moment, but warm enough to tear the heart wide open. When Grandma was discharged from the hospital, the whole family gently helped her home under the soft, thin afternoon sunlight. The golden rays slipped through the thatched roof, warm and peaceful enough to make everyone's heart settle. After days filled with fear and the sharp smell of disinfectant, just breathing in the scent of soil and faint kitchen smoke from the village felt strangely comforting. The house, once chaotic after the incident, had been cleaned up by Hung and Hoica. Every bowl, every mat, every corner of the cabinet had been set back in its place, though the fear still lingered faintly in their chests. The house was spotless now, no longer the scene of scattered items and overturned furniture like when the police first arrived. Even the air felt lighter, as if the house itself was exhaling in relief along with them. Hoica went to the kitchen and prepared the dishes that Grandma loved most. The boiled chicken, lifted from the pot, glistened golden and smelled faintly of ginger. The vegetables were a fresh, bright green, still steaming lightly. The pumpkin soup was sweet and clear, simple but carrying the unmistakable taste of home, the taste of a family reunited after a storm. Nothing fancy, but everything filled with Hoica's quiet, deep love. In the living room, Hung poured tea for his mother, placing the cup neatly in front of her. As he poured, he kept glancing at her to see if she was tired, worry and tenderness mixed in his eyes. Hoica brought the food to the table, carefully placing pieces of chicken and greens into Grandma's bowl, every motion slow and gentle, afraid she might still be weak. Tony toddled around the table, his little feet thumping against the ground. He giggled, holding up his plastic bowl like a trophy. That pure childlike laughter lifted the entire atmosphere, chasing away the last shadows of the terrifying night. After days stretched tight like a bowstring, the house was finally filled with laughter again, a sound none of them thought they would hear so soon. Warmth, reunion, life, it all felt like compensation for the pain they had just endured. Grandma looked at her children and grandson, her eyes suddenly shimmering. She set her chopsticks down and spoke, her voice low but filled with love. Let it go, what's past is past. As long as we're all sitting here together, that's all a mother needs. The table fell silent for a few seconds. Hung nodded slowly, his expression serious but warm. From now on, I'll try to come home more often. You won't be alone anymore. Hoica nodded too, her eyes glistening, her voice soft but steady. Our family, going through this, just makes us love each other more. Grandma smiled, a gentle smile that deepened the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. It wasn't because the meal was delicious. It was because everyone was safe. Everyone was here. Everyone still had each other. Outside, the mountain breeze brushed past the roof, carrying the scent of wood, earth, and peace. Inside the small house, the simple meal glowed warm, as if sunlight itself had taken a seat at their table. A completely ordinary moment. But to them, it was the most precious gift after days when they feared losing each other forever. Grandma was safe. The whole family finally breathed out after days that felt suffocating. Justice had been served, the wrongdoers brought into the light, and everything that needed to happen, happened exactly as it should. The reunion meal, Tony's laughter, the warmth of Grandma's hand. All of it felt like a soft blanket laid over the wounds left by the storm. The small house, after so much fear, finally lit up again. Voices returned. The feeling of family returned. But life. Storms never come just once. They often wait quietly, silently, choosing the moment when people finally feel steady, finally believe they're safe again. And that's when they rise. And for Hoica and Hung's family, something else is quietly approaching. Something none of them can predict, prepare for, or sense coming. These peaceful days are only the break between two chapters of the storm. Stay tuned for the next episode, airing tomorrow. And don't forget to leave a comment so I know how you feel about the story.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến video về câu chuyện quản lý thực Diệp nha mọi người. Bây giờ thì mình vẫn đang edit và chưa có xong. Không biết hôm nay YouTube nó bị làm sao mà mình tải video lên từ lúc 7:30 mà bây giờ 8:30 rồi mà nó vẫn chưa load xong. Không biết bây giờ ở bên G Mỹ là mấy giờ ta, để mình có không biết mình có lên công chiếu video không. Bye bye mọi người.